Hello and welcome to Super Great Kids Stories, wise tales from storytellers around the world, which will make you laugh and sometimes cry. Recommended for ages 5 to 105. I'm Kim and I love stories. This week we have a scary story for the 1st of May, told by Emily Hanna-Grazebrook, called The Two Silly Witches. Hello, Super Great Kids, and how are you? I'm very happy because it's the 1st of May, which means summer is arriving. And in the UK, it's celebrated with a holiday, picnics and folk dancing, which includes dancing around a maypole, which is like a tall pole wrapped with coloured ribbons. My boys who like to sing go out very early on May the 1st to sing madrigals, which are jolly little songs sung in small groups with no musical instruments. Here's a little snippet of one. Now is the month of Maying, when merry lads are playing. Fa-la-la-la-la-la-la, fa-la-la-la-la-la-la. Ah, I do like a bit of fa-la-laing. If you do, then look that song up. Now is the month of Maying, sung by the Kingsingers. We've already heard on this podcast how in Ireland the 1st of May is associated with mischievous fairies. Remember the story Kate Corkery told called Eggshell Soup with that funny changeling baby? But did you know that the 1st of May is also associated with witches? Yes. In lots of European countries, people say that witches hold a party on the eve of Mayday. So, in some countries like Germany and Sweden and Finland, they have a festival called Walpurgisnight, when people dance and bonfires are burned to scare the witches away. In Ireland, on May the 1st, people used to lock their cowsheds and didn't let their cows out into the fields so that the witches wouldn't steal their milk. How about that? So, to mark May the 1st on Super Great Kids Stories this year, we are very fortunate to have storyteller Emily Hanna-Grazebrook telling us a Mayday scary story about witches. Emily is the host of an excellent folktale podcast called Dragonfly Tales. And she's previously shared with us the marvellous story Mama Draga about the Sicilian ogress. And today she's going to share another of her favourites, The Two Silly Witches. Emily heard a traditional tale from Estonia and out of that has created her own version, which is a bit less scary. Now, just before we hear from Emily, here is a little question for you. Lots of people in the past have used special items or objects to keep mischievous fairies and witches away. Some put yellow flowers on their doorstep. Others fix horseshoes made out of metal on their doors, and others burn bonfires. So, while we have a quick word with the grown-ups, can you have a think about what would you do if you wanted to stop witches and mischievous fairies coming into your house on May the 1st? Have a little think. Are you ready? Off you go. Hello, Super Great Kids, I'm back. Did you decide what you'd do if you wanted to keep the witches away? Maybe you'd put your scary cat or dog on guard in the doorway. In medieval times, long ago, some people used to put old shoes or bottles up their chimney to trap the witches if they tried to come down it. If you ask in your local museum, you might be able to see some of those shoes and bottles. I've seen them in the Museum of London. And now, it's time for Emily Hanna-Grazebrook from Dragonfly Tales to share with us her story. The story is slightly scary, but I'm pleased to be able to tell you that it's only story witches we're talking about, and everything works out fine in the end. So, hold the hand of your grown-up in case they get scared. Are you sitting comfortably? Am I sitting comfortably? Then let the story come pouring out.
Are you ready for my story about witches? Well, the witches in this story, 2 of them, are rather silly witches. So maybe that's how we should start. Once, long ago, so long ago hardly anyone remembers, there lived a family of witches, and they lived in a cottage at the bottom of a hill. The mother witch was old and very wise, and quite grumpy, and her 2 daughters were young and funny and a bit silly. They were always forgetting to practice their spells, or knocking over potion bottles that would bring the furniture to life, or they were falling off their broomsticks and landing in trees, and the 2 of them were always giggling. They were also determined to make friends with the village folk who lived at the top of the hill. The 2 silly witches were always trying to do nice things for the villagers. One day they made rainbows pour out of the well. Another day they cast a spell so that the chickens sang songs. Can you imagine? They even left magic cupcakes on their doorsteps. Have you ever had a magic cupcake? Oh, they are delicious, and once you've eaten them, you can bounce around as if you're walking on the moon for about half an hour. But it made no difference what the 2 silly witches did. When the village people saw them coming, they ran into their houses and slammed the door, or they shouted mean things and threw rotten cabbages at them. And all this made Mother Witch very cross with her daughters. You can't make friends with normal people. We've tried for hundreds of years. They don't like us and they don't trust us. The older sister, whose name was Mildred, said, "But we could help the people in the village. We could use our magic to make their lives better." "No, it never works. They always turn against us in the end." "But why?" said the younger witch, whose name was Nancy. "Because people are stupid. They don't like anything they don't understand. Anything that's a bit different to them, like us. Now, say your spells and go to bed. It's nearly morning." So Mildred and Nancy said their spells and climbed into bed. All through the day the witches slept. The sun shone down on the village. And all through the night the 3 witches flew through the endless sky on their broomsticks, the wind blowing in their hair and the moonlight twinkling in their eyes. Now the moonbeams dance and play, days are only made for day, skies are only made for day, skies are only made for day, hear the music of night's way, sighing wood and waterfall, Sabbath times and mountains tall, Sabbath wood and waterfall, bless the moon is lost and leaves, bless the land and bless our trees, bless the land and birds of trees, we are endless birds of trees, we are endless part our lives, we are endless starlight. By morning, the 3 witches were safely tucked up in their bed. And the sun shone down on the village. It had been shining hot and strong for a few weeks now. In fact, the wells were drying up. So were the streams. The cows stopped giving milk as they had no fresh water to drink. The crops started to turn brown, and the fields turned to dust. When the wind blew, the dust choked the village, so that everybody coughed and their eyes were sore and red. Everyone was very, very thirsty. And of course, when something goes wrong, people always want something to blame, even if there isn't anything or anyone to blame. But they blamed the witches. The villagers gathered together in the square, coughing and wheezing, weak with hunger and thirst. "It's those witches," said one woman. "They've caused this awful drought. They're evil."
"Yeah, it's all the witches'
"Yes,
fault.
the witches."
Oh, those witches.
"We should kill the witches and then it'll rain again." Soon the crowd had found their strength. Heads were nodding, fists were shaking, and they all started chanting. "Kill the witches! Kill the witches! Kill the witches! Let's do it tonight." They all went back to their houses to find ropes and nets and pitchforks and sacks. Now in the village there lived a little girl, and she was a bit different from the other children. Her parents had died when she was just a baby, so she lived with her aunt and uncle, who didn't really like her. She was always asking questions like, why do the leaves fall from the trees? How does a caterpillar turn into a butterfly? How far away is the farthest star? And all these questions made her aunt and uncle very cross, probably because they didn't know the answer. One night, the little girl couldn't sleep, so she went over to the window to look out at the big and beautiful moon in the sky. It was then that she first saw the witches flying loop-the-loop in the sky, singing their song. And the song went into her heart, and it made her feel as if she wasn't alone. From that night on, she had often crept down the hill to watch the witches, out in their garden or sitting on their roof giggling. They didn't seem scary or evil or all the things her aunt and uncle called them. The old one did seem a bit grumpy, but the two younger ones were funny and a bit silly. So when the little girl heard all the village folk, including her aunt and uncle, shouting, "Kill the witches!"
Let's do it now.
she became very frightened for the three of them. And so she decided to warn them. By the time she'd crept to the bottom of the hill, it was evening, and the fierce, hot sun was setting. She crept up to the window of the witch's cottage and looked inside. The two silly witches were arguing with each other, and there, in the middle of the room, on the floor, was a big iron cauldron, broken in 2 pieces. "It isn't my fault it dropped," said Nancy. "Yes, it is. Mother told you not to try using motion spells before this evening, the eve of Mayday, but you just never listen." But I was sure I could make it fly. I wanted to surprise her." "Well, you certainly did that," Mildred said. "I've never seen her so cross. She has to travel hundreds of miles to get a new one, and that means she might not be back in time for the May Moonlight Festival." The 2 witches sank down on the floor and sat cross-legged with their chin in their hands. They looked very miserable. The little girl was wondering what to do when all of a sudden a beautiful black and red spider dropped down in front of her face and stared at her with its 100 eyes. "Ah!" The 2 silly witches rushed outside. Oh, don't worry," said Mildred. "Oh, that's just Spid. She's quite friendly, unless you're a juicy fly. What are you doing here, little girl?" The girl was so frightened she couldn't speak, so the witches brought her inside and sat her down in the fireside armchair and gave her a mug of sweet-tasting tea. She blew the hot liquid carefully and sipped it. Soon she felt relaxed and warm, as if someone had wrapped her in a lovely, cuddly blanket.
I'm from the village. I came to tell you there's trouble. There's no rain, see, and they thinks that you done it. They's gonna kill you for taking away the rain and making everything dry and dead.
The two sister witches glanced at each other in horror. But we didn't do that, said Nancy.
I knows you didn't, but they thinks you did. And they's gonna kill you tonight.
What are we going to do? Said Mildred. Mother's not here. She's hundreds of miles away.
Well, said the little girl, getting comfy, it seems to me that if it rains, then they might not kill you. Maybe yous can make it rain. Yous is witches, right?
Now, a rain spell is a tricky spell, not to be cast by young witches who don't practice. But their mother was away getting a new cauldron, and the villagers were preparing to capture them. Well, it seemed to the two sister witches that they didn't have much choice. So all three of them started scurrying around the house, searching and searching for every spell book they could find. They lifted down their mother's huge tomes and hurriedly skimmed through the pages looking for a rain spell. How to make candy floss out of cotton wool. Oh, no, that's no good. Let me see. How to cause a cyclone. No, we don't want a cyclone. Look, I found it. How to make rain. Now, listen. It says, tie 7 knots in a piece of magic string. Undo them one by one. Each knot will make a different sort of rain. Well, what sorts of different rain? Said Nancy. Let me read it. It says, the first will give you spits and spots. The second, drizzle, lots and lots. The third will give you some light rain. The fourth will streak your window pane. The fifth, and it is bucketing. The sixth will pour down everything. The 7th knot, the cloud burst, is only for a mighty thirst. Right. Well, what shall we do? The little girl smiled.
I think yous need to find some magic string.
So the 3 girls searched the cottage high and low again, in trunks and wardrobes, in boxes and broom cupboards. At last, I found some, said Nancy. Right, let's tie 7 knots and go outside. Now, I don't know how good you are at tying knots. Maybe you can tie your own shoelaces. Well, witches are very good at tying knots. At least they're supposed to be. But silly witches aren't very good at all. It took them a long time to tie 7 knots along the magic string, but when they had done it, they went outside the cottage and held up the string so that it dangled in front of them.
What next?
Said Nancy. Well, let's start with the first knot, just to see if it works. What did it say? The first will give you spits and spots. Right, here goes. Just then, they heard the sounds of loud, angry voices. They looked up the hill and saw a huge crowd of people coming down. They were carrying pitchforks and nets and fire torches and sacks.
Quick, said the little girl. Do it!
Mildred carefully untied the first knot. She concentrated very hard, and the other 2 girls began chanting, "Make it rain! Make it rain!" Slowly, slowly, as the string untied, 1 or 2 fat drops of rain splashed on the dusty ground. Some people in the crowd stopped and looked up at the sky. But not for long. Soon they were marching down the hill towards the witch's cottage.
It works, said the little girl. let's skip some and get more rain.
And so Mildred untied the third knot, the one that gives light rain. Make it rain, make it rain. And sure enough, the 1 or 2 became 3 or 4, then 5 and 6, until a light rain pitter-pattered down from the sky. We're doing it, said Mildred. Maybe we should jump to the 6th knot, buckets of rain. That would soon help the drought. So she carefully untied the 6th knot. Make it rain, make it rain. Suddenly, water poured down from the sky as if the gods had emptied out their bathtub. The girls squealed with delight and laughed as all the people on the hill were soaked by the rain pouring down as if chucked from 1,000 buckets. There was so much water that the hill quickly became muddy and very, very slippery. The villagers tried to find their footing. They clung on to each other, but it was no good. Oh, no, hold on to me. They all started slipping and sliding down the hill and landed at the bottom in a huge, tangled heap, right in front of the witch's cottage. The bucketing water stopped pouring down, and the 2 silly witches giggled behind their hands. But the little girl ran forward as the villagers helped each other up.
Stop! The witches didn't make the drought. They's only wanted to be friends. But they can make it rain, so the crops can grow and the rivers can run and the wells can fill. But they won't do it, not unless you leave them be.
And she shook her little fist and gave the villagers a mighty hard stare.
What's it to be? Friends and rain, or foes and drought?
The 2 silly witches weren't giggling any more. They looked anxiously at the wet villagers, who all started muttering to each other.
Oh, what are we going to do?
I don't know. I don't like the look of them.
I would like some rain, though. It'd be nice.
I know, but I can't trust them, you know. They're
So
weird.
dry, love.
I know, but they look evil.
They'll prove to you they mean good.
She turned to the sisters.
Do it. Do the cloud burst.
The 7th knot, the cloud burst, only for a mighty thirst. The villagers watched as Mildred began to untie the last knot with trembling fingers. And then... it rained. And it rained. And rained, and it rained, and at first the people were overjoyed, cheering and dancing round as the rain poured down. But it didn't stop. It poured so fast that puddles formed, and they got bigger and wider. Then the water was up to their ankles, and then it was up to their knees. It was halfway up the cottage door.
Make it stop, Mildred.
I can't, Nancy. I don't know how. The villagers were trying to get back up the hill, but they couldn't climb it. The whole valley was filling up with water. The 2 sisters lifted up the little girl and began to help the villagers up onto the roof. Here, take my hand. Oh, you can climb on my back. Here, quickly.
Oh, I
can't swim either. When the very last terrified villager was squeezed onto the roof of the cottage, all huddled together and watched in horror as the water levels kept rising and rising.
Oh, I wish Mother was here,
said Nancy. So do I.
Oh, you do you?
Everyone looked up, and there, perched on the top of the chimney, was Mother Witch, broomstick in hand and a beautiful, shiny new cauldron tucked under her arm. "What on earth have you girls been up to? And why is my roof covered in wet people?" "We're sorry, Mother. They thought we caused the drought, so we thought if we made it rain they wouldn't kill us."
Is that so?
said Mother Witch.
Oh, no.
Not at all, never.
Well, I think we better stop this cloudburst first.
The old witch turned her face up to the dark sky and muttered an incantation under her breath. Don't ask me what she said. It's something only old witches know. The torrent of rain became a pitter-patter, and then a drizzle, and then a spit-spot, and stop. The sun came out, and from behind the clouds there shone the most beautiful rainbow the village folk had ever seen. "Now get down!" She clapped her hands. Everyone was suddenly back on the ground. The water was gone, and everyone was dry. "You girls are in big, big trouble."
Excuse me, Mrs. Witch.
My name is Agatha.
Right, Miss Agatha, on behalf of all the villagers, I would like to thank you for stopping us drowning and also stopping the drought.
There was excited agreement.
Yes, it was simply marvellous. You saved the village not once, but twice. Oh, you're ever so clever.
"Oh yes, do pop by to the village any time."
We'll be off now. Bye-bye.
Yes, bye.
Bye-bye, Agatha.
Bye.
And off they went up the hill.
Mildred, Nancy, go to your rooms this instant and study your spells.
The girls walked miserably indoors, and Agatha looked down at the little girl.
What's your name, then?
Alice.
Yeah, I thought as much. I suppose you want to stay for tea, don't you?
Yes, please.
From that day on, things were different. The villagers didn't mind the witches living at the bottom of the hill. They even invited them to the local fairs and celebrations. And every Mayday Eve, they had a very special party to remind them of the time the witches came to their aid. There was dancing and singing and feasting, and the witches would always stay for a while. But as the moon grew big and bright, they would say their goodbyes and quietly slip away. And as the people of the village tucked themselves into bed and fell into a dreamy sleep, the stars twinkled and the wind twirled the leaves, and the witches took flight.
Thanks so much to Emily Hanna-Grazebrook for that story. That was a great witchy song, wasn't it? I wonder if you could make up a spell song with witchy things in it like spiders and flies and frogs. If you liked that story, there are many more really good traditional tales on Emily's podcast, which you can find on dragonflytales.uk. And here's my question. Emily started her story with "Once, long ago, so long ago that hardly anyone remembers." If you were going to tell someone a story, how would you start your story? Now, lots of you have joined our Owlet Storytelling Club recently, so it's time to dig deep into our bag of happies and fly around the world with Story Hour to say thank you and welcome to some new owlets. Let's begin in India to greet 8-year-old Shivya and her sister Arja, who is 6. They sent us 2 brilliant pictures of the boy who drew cats and the frog in a well story from China. One of their favourite stories is The Sea Witch, told by Shane Ibbs. And let's head to St. Paul in Minnesota in the US next to greet owlet Amelia Starr. Amelia turned 7 on April the 20th. I do hope you had a happy one, Amelia. Amelia's favourites are all the Anansi stories. And now let's go to Jupiter in Florida to greet owlet Leo, who is turning 7. Leo has been listening to Super Great Kids stories for nearly 4 years. And he's been an owlet for 2 years. That makes you a super fan, Leo. His favourite stories are The Bird with Big Feet and The 3 Billy Goats Gruff. And let's fly across to Keller in Texas now, where Nasia will be turning 5 on May the 7th. He listens with his brother Hezekiah, who's nearly 2. Nasia's favourite stories are Mama Draga, told by Emily Hanna-Grazebrook, and The Hairy Toe, told by Maya Ganatra. And let's head north to upstate New York next to greet owlets Colin, who is 6, Adam, who is 4, and 2-year-old Willow. They listen every night at bedtime, and I'm told they liked the story The 3 Ants so much that they wanted to listen to it all over again. And let's fly to Europe now, to Romania, to greet Tilda, who will be 6 this month. Tilda listens on car rides and when she's drawing at home. She particularly liked The Hairy Toe and managed not to scream. Well done you. And staying in Europe, let's fly to Sofia in Bulgaria to greet Stoyan, who is about to be 7 and loves the scary stories and all the Anansi ones. And let's head to Munich in Germany next to say hello to Georgi, who is 9 this week. I hope you have a happy day. Georgi doesn't go to sleep without listening to a Super Great Kids story. His favourites are Mama Draga and The Ghost of the Bloody Finger. He loves the scary stories the most. Well, you've got another scary story coming this week, Georgi, so I hope you like that one. And let's head to Warsaw in Poland now. Lots of European owlets this week, where Santiago, who is 6, and Oliver, who is 3, have recently moved from London. Their favourite story is The Magical Sneeze. I hope you're settling happily in your new home. And let's fly all the way south to Sydney in Australia now to say hoo 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 to Flora, who is 6, and Clara, who is 4. They are super fans. A big hello to both of you. Clara listens to Misery on repeat, and Flora loves telling the Ghost of the Bloody Finger to all her friends. And welcome all of you to the club. That's all the Owlet shoutouts for this week. More next week. And our Pick of the Week picture goes to 6-year-old Emily from Maine in the US. Emily has painted a beautiful image of the Cinderella-style story Tattercoats. I love the way Tattercoats is dancing while Gooseboy is playing his flute with all the musical notes coming out of it. If you have a picture you'd like to share with us, then send it via our website to supergreatkidsstories.com or on our Facebook page, facebook.com/supergreatkidsstories. And we can share your art with other story lovers on our Facebook page and Instagram art gallery at supergreatkids_art. And thanks to all of you who are subscribing to our podcast. It's very kind of you. It's only £3 a month, that's less than $4, to get advert-free and access to all the scary stories. And if you pay for the next tier up, you'll get advert-free plus over 50 bonus stories and all of the Super Great Scary Stories. Plus, you'll get access to our Super Great Kids Stories Express, which is great for listening to stories back to back. Visit our website for more details at supergreatkidsstories.com. That's it for now. Do have a happy May Day, and remember to book your ticket for a wild weekend of midsummer storytelling where you can hear Toop, Kim, Dominic and Shane telling super great stories at the Stealing Thunder Storytelling Festival on June the 21st and the 22nd. Do book soon because tickets have sold like hot Johnny cakes and they only have Sunday tickets left. Oh, and children under 7 go free. Keep telling those stories and weaving your spells. This podcast was produced by Kim Normanton and David Smith at Wardour Studios in fabulous Fitzrovia in London.